Also, I want to remind all of you guys, I was talking briefly about the black thread, where we're talking about like the name for the new hardware fabrication plate. In fact, I could probably just share it. So up here, there's this thread, and there are a few people replying. I see some participation, but I think it'd be really cool if, if you wanted to, all of you could do it. Of course, it's not like something you have to do, but I just feel like there's not really a whole lot that we can do right now to like actually, engage with each other a whole lot beyond me just talking to you. So I feel like anything that we could do to just like do something beyond, just this would be ideal. So, anyways, there's been quite a while since anyone wanted to join, so I think I'll start the lesson. All right. Wait. I'm going to unpin this video. All right. So, this week, we're going to be learning about the table saw. So, with the table saw, an overview of it is it's basically just quite similar to the miter saw, except while the miter saw is a small circular blade that you bring down and move, the table saw is a stationary saw that you run the wood through. Yeah, it's just bigger and more powerful, and the fact that the saw is stationary and that you can run wood through it, it means that you can make long cuts across an entire sheet of wood that you wouldn't be able to do with the miter saw. So for example, you got like this piece of plywood. Table saw, what you could do is you can run it along where the blade would cut through. But with a miter saw, since it's a stationary tool, you can only cut through like, maybe like 6 or 7 inches into here. So we mainly use it for just getting large sheets of plywood like that and cutting it down to specific dimensions for building game pieces. And the table saw also creates a very nice edge that you can refine quite well. And these straight cuts and stuff are usually preceding different woodworking tools such as the jigsaw or the circular saw. For example, there was this part 2 years ago that was kind of served as a gate to put the game pieces in. Essentially, there was a rectangle that needed to be a specific dimension, and then it had like it was shaped like a circle, but it was oblong and it had some extra cuts in it. It was a really weird shape. So what we had to do was to take the jigsaw and cut out that shape after we cut out the rectangle, which ties into what order you have to do things in through the entire process of hardware fabrication. I think we already have a cross. Wait, no, we don't have a crosscut thread. I'm thinking the wrong thing. But if you want to make it, then sure. We also, the table saw is also used to size down spoil board for our CNC router. So basically, our CNC, it usually takes something like sheet metal and like shapes it down, cuts holes in it, stuff like that, stuff like this. But obviously, the router bit would need to go past the lowest part of the sheet metal in order to cut holes all the way through, of course. So what that means is that it can't just like drill into the bed because that would damage the machine. So you have this layer of spoil board that the router bit can sort of bite into without hurting the actual router bit. And that requires replacement of the spoil board during build season, like every couple of weeks, usually, that's when we use the CNC the most. So under those conditions, every couple of weeks, we need to cut out a new spoil board, which is usually 52 by 54 inches. And yeah, we use that to, we also use it to refine large pieces of plywood for game pieces. And yeah, which are then usually refined for the jigsaw. All right, again, number one element of safety. We all have it, we all remember it, it's all ingrained in our mind. We got the safety glasses. And so I'm going to be pretty blunt with this. The table saw is more dangerous than any of the other tools that we have in the lab because the danger of the saw, like say we're running this part through, the saw is going like this. The danger of the saw pitching the wood incorrectly, there's a danger of that happening, whether it's like you start moving in and you start to twist it or something. It can make it so that whatever you're cutting gets launched out. And because the saw is rotating at thousands of RPM, that and it has a really high torque, has a lot of power, it means that the wood can easily get launched way faster than what is required to hurt someone. So yeah, so basically the takeaway from that safety risk is that the direction in which you are sawing, the potential, there's a path that can be created in which, like if you're standing in there when the table saw is running, that path is like not safe to go into. And so basically it just means that you have to stand next to the part. So for example, if you're rolling the part this way to the table saw, if it were to kick back at you and like launch, you have to make sure that you're not in that path that it could go towards. So I'd have to be standing like over here before pushing it through and not like right in front of it. So again, the hand rule applies very much so with this tool. There is following the hand rule makes it so that there's zero chance of someone like absent-mindedly like keeping their hand on the piece as the table saw is running through. You can imagine how that can turn into a disaster. And the place we're going to move has a table saw. It's a special type of table saw. It's called a saw stop, which can basically like detect the moisture of what it's cutting through. So if it's starting to cut through someone's finger, it can detect that, and then the table saw will drop immediately. And it only results in like a small cut for whoever was like not following safety procedures, which is cool, but I still want to enforce the hand rule for this tool because it is extremely important to not have that happen, because the mechanism for that saw stop feature, although they make it as reliable as possible, you can't rely on that to not give you anything more than a small cut. So we also have a couple of tools that help you follow the hand length rule. There is I forget the name of it, but what it does is it allows you to push the work along without while keeping the safe distance away. It basically has a surface that's perpendicular to the direction of the cut, and you can just hold on to that in the part at the same time and move it forward. It's really easy. And there's also a push stick. So I'll show you how that can how that's a big help in terms of safety and convenience right now, actually. So, oh, by the way, The only thing I have to do is upload this week's video and last week's video summaries onto YouTube, and then I'll be all cut up with that. So I just didn't upload them in case anyone was wondering where they went, kind of beginning you are, because you are the type to come in to the meeting every week, which I appreciate. But anyways, what I'm going to do now is take this camera and move outside to where I put my tablecloth. All right, so let me just see. Okay. I was just trying to see if I could open the chat here. It looks like I can. But with the sun out and everything, it's not going to be very easy for me to read the chat, especially if I'm trying to use the tabletop at the same time. So Asher and John, if someone has a question, can you just let me know? Because I don't think I'll be able to check it very regularly. Case in point, I get this extension cord, plug it in right now. So it'll only take a few seconds. All right. All right, you can see this. Okay, so this is what the tabletop looks like. First off, what you want to know about this is that the manufacturer of the tool knew that the on and off switch would be especially important for this in case it needs to be stopped immediately. So what I want everyone to know first is that this big red button is the stop button, and oftentimes you might want someone else to help you use the tablecloth, especially if you have a piece of wood that's more cumbersome than this. And if someone wants to stop, then generally when you're using this tool, no, not generally, all the time when you're using this tool, if someone wants you to stop, you better stop. Like, under no circumstances should you keep going. Because if someone isn't feeling safe around the tool, you need them to be able to stop the tool as quickly as possible. So this tool is so much more important than any of the others, and I just want to stress that to the point where it annoys you. So, yeah. Let me just get this tool out real quick. And we have all I need. So, there are actually a lot of features on this tabletop, which I like. I'm going to start out with the blade. So here you can see what the blade looks like. If I turn it on, if it were to rotate in this direction, it would be rotating in this direction. So for example, if I was cutting part lengthwise, the path of danger would be this wide, and it would go all the way over there, right into the fence. There are a couple of videos on YouTube demonstrating the destructive power of a tablecloth, and yeah, let's just say that I'm not like I'm not like over exaggerating anything when I say you do not want to be in the path of destruction if the tablecloth wants to launch a piece of wood, okay? Because if the fence right behind me were to try and absorb the impact of the wood that the tablecloth launched, the fence would not win. I would have to replace the fence. So yeah, make sure of that. I don't want to see anyone using the table saw like this. I want to see them using the table saw like this. Just to get that out of the way one more time. So this is the bare table saw. This is not a very safe orientation for the table saw to be in, because especially if you are a beginner, there's going to be a really big risk of you cutting it and then twisting it. The saw isn't going to like being twisted, so what it's going to do is going to catch onto the wood and fling it back. That is the main cause of what causes the wood to fling back. Since everyone at this club was always taught the proper way to be safe with the table saw, the wood has never been flung back. But I know that this twisting is the main cause for it, so I don't want to see anyone doing this. But there are some measures that you can take to prevent twisting almost altogether. But one way is with this, they call it a knife. It's not like an actual knife. It's something to help. What this does is that when it's installed, it makes it so that the wood on the other side doesn't, it just makes it harder for that twisting thing to catch, you know? It's like when the wood is already past the table saw, it's not going to want to go left or right. It's just want to keep going straight onwards, which makes the table saw a little bit safer to use. But I want to maximize safety for everyone, including myself. So what I'm going to be using is this. So what this does what that previous knife does, except it has some extra safety features, as you can see. It has this mechanism for getting sawdust out of the way, and it also has these plastic shields that under every angle, you will feel these before you feel the table saw. So if anyone is ever careless enough to ignore the hand length rule, they'll know to they'll be able to feel these as a warning before they get their fingers cut. So this goes in like this, easy. Now that it's installed, you can see why it would allow you to be warned before your fingers get cut. All right, so next is we have this fence. So this is the tool that allows us to measure the length or the width of whatever part that we're cutting. Let me see if I can give you guys a better view of this. I have these measurements right here. One measurement is 8 inches higher than the other, and that is because the fence can be set to be further or closer to the saw blade at any given time. In this configuration, which is the one that I use the most, you're going to be looking at this yellow ruler right here. But it's important to know that you can use both. Basically, what you do is you take the fence and you line the part up with the fence. And then you measure the length that you want on the fence. Let's say I want 9 inches. So I line that this red marker up with a number 9. When I use this lever, the table saw to lock the fence in place that it doesn't move. And then if I were to push the part through, this side would be 9 inches long exactly. So let's say if there was a part that was very long like this, to the point where the fence spilled over the actual table. It has this extension right here. That's the exact same level as this, but there's no need to worry about the part going askew because of the lack of table surface right here. And we have this knob right here for fine adjustment. Also, there is this crank under here. I want to show you guys. This adjust the height of the table saw blade. It's kind of noisy, but whatever. Most of the time, as a rule of thumb, you won't ever be cutting, in this club anyways, you won't be cutting with a table saw blade that sticks out a whole lot over the surface of the wood, which makes it easier to cut, but it also makes it important to note that the direction of the force of the saw will be closer to horizontal than it will be vertical. For example, if you had the saw and it was rotating like this, and you fed some wood in that met at the halfway point of the circle, that cut the circular saw, like it sort of just like cut it in half basically, the direction that the teeth would be moving as it came into contact with the wood would be perfectly straight down, meaning that if something were to go wrong, the wood would be, it wouldn't exactly be launched, but there would be some other dangers to that, particularly being that there is not as much certainty that it would go away from you, assuming you're using the table saw properly. So in short, it's best to make the saw just a little bit higher than the level of the wood. And we have the push stick. For example, you can see that between the fence and the saw blade right here, I want to be cutting such that I'm constantly putting a force towards the fence and also forwards, because that's important in order to finish the cut, right? The thing is, it's helpful to have a force going down that's close to the saw blade to prevent the piece from coming up, because that's something that can happen, especially with larger pieces. So what you can do with this push stick is go down and forward. And so since I have 2 points of contact, one with my finger and one with the push stick, going forward through the blade, that makes it so that the cut will certainly be straight, especially if I push the work closer to the fence with my left hand right here. And obviously, I will not be able to do that safely with my fingers. So the push stick, great, use it whenever you can. And then finally, I have this, it has a fence that goes and slides right in here. What this does is it allows for the wood to be placed perpendicularly with the cut with the bandsaw, which makes it a lot more convenient to cut straight, because pushing to the side and forward makes it, if you can see this, maybe I can help you see this a little bit better. If I push to the side and forward a little bit, you can see that like there's a little chance that it could go askew just a little bit. And so using that would help eliminate that inaccuracy that would go with that. And yes, I am a little late on this, but Ashton is right. The blade should just be a little bit above, or you should only just be able to see the teeth above the wood. And so with all that in mind, here is the action plan to stay safe when you're using the table saw. I'm going to move this actually because I'm kind of standing in front of the camera. You want to stand to the side, use the push stick to go down and forward, use this hand to make sure that this and the work are level with each other. Also, to push forward and towards the fence just a little bit to ensure that the work is parallel. And you want the entire cutting process to be just to be steady, basically. Because if you start going fast and then go slower, there's going to be a lot of friction that will be produced. And that could result in, that's obviously not very safe. It's not going to result in a fire, but it could mess up the part. Plus, it'll make this awful noise, and that sort of, it definitely gets me on edge because it's like, anything when you're using the table saw wrong is pretty dangerous. So just keeping a nice steady cut is super important. And also, this is going to look stupid, but I'm going to keep pushing the part through after it's done being cut, right up until it falls off the floor. Normally, I would have a table that's the same level that the part goes on after it's done being cut. But I don't have that right now. We took it apart when we were moving the lab. That's unfortunate, but I don't really care because this goes the same for the vertical bandsaw. What happens is that the part after it's done being cut would be sandwiched between this knife and the fence. It could move backwards, and then it could get stuck between the moving saw and the fence, which could jam the machine, or it could launch the part after you're done cutting it. And everyone, yeah, you don't want to be on the blade, that's right. So that's arguably more dangerous than it kicking back when it's running and when everyone's using it, because your guard is down, so that can mean that you could return this to the position right in front of here, which is bad. So what you want to do is just push the part that you're cutting through until nothing is touching the blade anymore, and then you press the big red button and it stops really quick. And the reason why I'm being so adamant about all these procedures is because I just take this off real quick, make sure the wood isn't getting caught. This tool is very loud, as you can see. So chances are you're not going to be able to reliably communicate with someone else if the table saw is running. So any situation I want to inform you guys of, so that you know how to deal with it without talking to anyone else, and so we can avoid any sort of incident from occurring. So that's all I have to say. I have the fence set to 2 inches. I'm going to pretend that I have to make a part that's 2 inches wide and 8 inches long, which is how wide this is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the part like this. I'm going to make sure that I am not in the path of destruction, assuming a disaster occurs, and that I have the push stick, and that the push stick is not going to go into the saw. And so then I'm going to make sure that no one is around me who could get hurt. That's important too. Everyone else's safety is just as important as yours. And then I'm going to make sure that everyone is okay with the loud noise that's going to go on, because sometimes people want to talk to each other in the same room as you, and you want to make sure that they're okay with, you know, using crazy loud tools and everything. And then you're going to go and cut smoothly, and don't stop pushing until it's off of the table. All right, and there we have a silky smooth. I'm not sure if you can see that. Oh, what? Oh, that sucks. Is the camera on now? Can you guys see me? All right. How long was it out for? Just a couple seconds?
It was out for the perfect amount of time that you were cutting.
Oh, so
It just
when I turned on the,
cutting, it went out, and right when you stopped, it went back on.
well, okay, that's unfortunate. I could just do it again then. Anyways, I want you guys to see the results of the cut, just to see that this saw is worth the measures that you have to go through in order to be safe around it. For comparison, I'm not sure if you guys could see this, but if we were in person, we would find a silky smooth edge right here and then a splintery one over here that the factory made. So, let's see. I'm just going to read the chat again. All right. All right, whatever. I'll just do it again. It's fine. All right. Okay. Everything was fine then? All right. That's better. That's what we're talking about. Okay. So cool. There was a small change that I noticed in the pitch of the roar of the machine, and that was because of this. There was a knot that we cut through, and that knot is typically a lot harder in other places of wood, especially since this is pine, and pine, except for the knot, is like really soft. Um, what that meant is, well, I mean, I could handle it, obviously, but that's just something that you have to account for with all types of wood. With metal, everything is super uniform, but with wood, it's like you have to pay attention to knots. And if you do have a knot, and let's say like we would never use it, but like if you were using like a hardwood like oak, and you had like a bunch of knots that you have to cut through, you might want to choose like a different area of the part to cut for like a different piece of wood. So that's something to look out for, I guess. But anyways, I'm going to bring my phone back. And I want to ask everyone if they have any lingering questions, if they want me to repeat anything, because everything that I told you guys about the procedures that you have to go through and what you have to do to stay safe is very important for the table saw, because again, to put it bluntly, this is the tool that has the most potential to hurt you if you don't do it right. So if anyone has any questions, that would be the perfect time to ask them. All right. All right, cool. I was actually thinking, I decided not to in the end, which I think is fine. So I was thinking of showing briefly the circular saw, but honestly, the circular saw, it's just like a portable, um, it's just what you think it is. It's a portable saw that is, you plug into an outlet, you can carry around with you, and it's really disorienting. Looking at two clones of myself here, look at this sign. Anyways, it's basically just like a portable table saw kind of, one that you move around instead of the wood. And so really the only difference between that is portability and the fact that we usually buy huge reams of plywood, like 4 feet by 8 feet. And as you can imagine, that's kind of impossible to handle safely on a table saw with one person. And it got to the point where it was like, I would have to ask like 5 other people to come and help like cut down the wood, which isn't safe because having 5 other people around you using one tool means that communication between all of them is pretty difficult. And with the circular saw, you can still get a pretty good product out of just like cutting a huge ream of plywood, like in half or whatever. And yeah, for us, it's worked. The circular saw is actually what I've been using to cut a spoil board out most of the time, actually. So When it comes down to it, there's going to be the jigsaw, which I'll show you guys how to use when we get back into whatever sort of lab situation that we get into in the future. And the bandsaw, which is super easy. I'm sure all of you will be able to master that in a day. And then the circular saw, which is really similar to the table saw. So, yeah, that's it for today. I want to thank you all for listening. This recording, and again, those 2 other videos, video tool summaries will be up on YouTube by earlier tonight, I think. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good one.